So FIFA 18 finally arrives on Nintendo Switch, but unlike the PS4, Xbox One and PC versions, which uses DICE's Frostbite technology, the Switch game here is said to be a custom build designed specifically for Nintendo's machine. And when you think about this, the approach makes sense. The Switch is considerably weaker in terms of GPU and CPU processing power, and this is further reduced when using the machine in portable mode, where the clock frequency is lowered in order to preserve battery life. This means getting something like the Frostbite engine up and running smoothly on the Nintendo Switch, while running at 60 frames per second is something of a difficult, if not impossible task. So going with a different engine better suited to Nintendo's hybrid console sounds like the best option here. And of course that also allows for EA to target Switch specific functionality too, something that tailors the experience a bit more to the kind of hybrid nature of Nintendo's console. In that respect then, FIFA 18 has the potential to be an excellent port that really adds something to the experience. Just imagine a full-blown console-style FIFA, but one that can also be played on the go. That's the dream, right? But what exactly are we getting here? Is this really a custom experience built around Switch? Or does the game have its roots in the last gen versions? And what does this mean for the actual content on offer? Are we actually looking at the same FIFA 18 game that's also present on the current gen platforms? Well, let's find out. On the face of it, it looks like there is some kind of custom setup in play, but one that looks to take its foundations from the last gen versions of the game, before building on top of that with new graphical features and various gameplay tweaks. In that sense, FIFA 18 on Switch isn't a straight port of the 360 PS3 Legacy Edition, but it also doesn't deliver the same FIFA 18 experience as found on PS4 and Xbox One either. It's kind of a hybrid that looks and plays quite differently, with some elements feeling like an extension of FIFA 17 rather than a kind of backporting of FIFA 18 to Nintendo's console. Still, there's a lot going for the Switch version. The release mostly appears to deliver the full fat experience on Nintendo's console in terms of pretty much including most of the available modes seen on PS4 and Xbox One. The journey is missing, but you get everything else including online play and the Ultimate Team, a mode that previously was usually removed from Nintendo's platforms. It's certainly the most feature-complete FIFA we've seen on Nintendo's console in years, although the game doesn't quite deliver in all areas and some of the package is oddly lacking in a few places. For example, in the Ultimate Team there's no squad battles or weekend league. Meanwhile, in terms of customizing the individual match, some of the weather options are also missing. And then there's the gameplay itself, which really feels a little different to FIFA 18 on current gen systems. The pace is visibly faster, leading to a somewhat snappier feel, which I quite like. Although the AI appears more erratic and less refined, I'd probably describe it as more of a refined FIFA 17 with elements of 18, rather than a port of this year's installment in its entirety. So fans expecting the complete FIFA 18 experience may be a little disappointed at these changes. The visual package is also a kind of a mixture of old and new as well. Last gen foundations are in place but enhanced with higher quality effects and lighting. For example, many of the pre-match sequences and replays use the same camera setup and controls across both Switch and the Legacy Edition on 360. So these look completely different from that of the FIFA 18 on current gen systems. Core assets are also taken from the Legacy Edition too, so things like player and stadium modelling appears very similar, as do the player animations, which are a step back from PS4 and Xbox One. The 3D crowds that also appeared on recent FIFA games are nowhere to be found either, paired back to animated 2D sprites. It's set up commonplace on the 360 and PS3 versions. At its core, it's clear that the Switch version shares much in commonality with the Legacy Edition, though the visuals are given a healthy boost in several areas that help to give the game a slightly more modern appearance. For example, the level of detail is actually increased across the players via the use of high resolution textures and normal mapping, which adds more depth to facial features like skin and hair, bringing these a slight step closer to what you might get on PS4 and Xbox One, though obviously they still fall quite far behind. The biggest improvement though comes with regards to lighting and shader work, which is given a complete makeover. The use of physically based rendering appears to be in work here, allowing for a more realistic depiction of materials across the players and the stadiums, and even the actual pitch itself. In fact, the usage of 3D grass displayed across replays on Switch is actually used more liberally than on the last gen Legacy editions, and post-processing is also upgraded with a high quality depth of field effect. Although that being said, not all aspects of the effects work are improved. Take the use of bloom for example. This appears to be absent in the Switch version, while it's there on both the 360 and PS4, albeit in a more rudimentary form on the last gen version. I think it's an intriguing release that shows the Switch has the capacity to provide a nice upgrade over the last gen versions of the game in several areas, but without having enough horsepower to quite scale down the full fat Frostbite experience found on say PS4 and Xbox One. And similarly, the gameplay also takes a hybrid approach, mixing in new features from FIFA 18 while having the base firmly locked down with the last gen 360 release. Even so, putting the game up against the PlayStation 4 version, and the Switch does hold up quite well in some areas. The resolution is locked at native 1080p when running in docked mode, the same as on PS4. There's no anti-aliasing present on the Switch though, so the game doesn't look quite as clean, but at least it's crisp and very sharp. Obviously the level of graphical quality in other areas can't quite match PlayStation 4, but things such as the depth of field are actually pretty comparable across both systems. And there's a sense that while the lighting is missing some of the intense HDR style lighting effects on current gen systems, there's a level of depth we get to the presentation that isn't present on the 360 game for instance. It really does kind of fit in between the two. Older core assets mixed in with more advanced effects that you might expect to see on say an early PlayStation 4 release. It kind of feels like some of the enhancements found in the Ignite engine have been carried over to the Switch version, even though we're not looking at a close match for the PS4 FIFA titles. So in terms of the big screen experience, I think that obviously the current gen PS4 and Xbox One versions are going to deliver a better experience, but the advantage of Switch is obviously the ability to play on the go as well. Take the Switch out of docked mode so you're playing on the handheld screen itself, and suddenly the game just holds up a lot better. Some of the more glaring differences are simply less obvious when viewed on the small screen, and the crisp image quality also helps in delivering quite a striking presentation. The game's running at native 720p in portable mode, and in terms of the core graphical quality, well, that remains identical to the docked mode, so you really are getting the console-based experience on the go. Performance also falls roughly into line with what we get on current gen systems too. We're looking at pretty much a solid 60 frames per second during gameplay, whether that be in docked or portable mode. There's the occasional 1 FPS dip from time to time, but really this doesn't stick out or happen very often at all. So we can say that mostly the action feels smooth and consistent throughout. And yeah, like with the other versions, replays and pre-match sequences operate at 30 frames per second. Though these aspects are a bit more uneven on the Switch version, with some drops down to around 20 FPS when the entire squad is on screen, and interestingly the frame rate also sometimes becomes uncapped when switching from one scene to another. But otherwise performance is very good, especially during gameplay where there's a sense that you are getting an uncompromised FIFA experience, and one that works very well equally in portable or docked modes. Despite some compromises to the visuals and changes to the core gameplay mechanics, there's still a sense that FIFA 18 works very well on the Switch in this hybrid form, even if we're not looking at a complete match for the mainline PS4 and Xbox One versions. And let's look at it this way. This is the most feature complete FIFA we've seen on a Nintendo console in years, and the fact that you can actually take it away and play it on the go, that's pretty cool stuff. And this can also be done with 2 players as well, allowing you to play with your mates without needing to be hooked up to the big screen. Detach each of the Joy-Cons from the side of the system and you can give one of these to your mates, thus 2 people playing together against each other using one Switch. And that's whether you're running in docked mode or portable mode as well. It's actually one of the coolest aspects of the Switch game in general, and even though the controls are slightly simplified to work with the fewer buttons on each Joy-Con, I think it generally holds up very well, and if you're looking to have some multiplayer fun away from the big screen, then it does a very good job there. So to wrap up, what we're looking at here really is a kind of hybrid custom mix of sorts. While not all aspects of the game appears to be designed specifically around Switch, clearly the Legacy Edition was used as a base here. there's definitely a sense that EA have tried to update parts of the engine in order to better suit Switch, the improved visuals for example, and some of the tweaks to gameplay. But they haven't really gone the full hog into replicating a truly portable FIFA 18 experience, at least in terms of matching the gameplay of this year's installment. But overall, if you're looking for a mostly full-fat console-style FIFA experience that you can play at home or on the go, then the Switch version of FIFA 18 does in fact deliver that. Perhaps it does straddle the line with the last-gen versions a little bit too closely with regards to the overall gameplay, but aside from that, I think EA have done a reasonable job here, and I feel that this is something that could be built upon in the future. This is kind of the proof of concept as such, showing that the Switch can do a fully fledged FIFA title. And elements that do fall behind, such as the older style camera system and animations, could be improved in subsequent FIFA games. But for now, I think that FIFA 18 is a solid start to the series on Nintendo's new console, and it's well worth checking out if you want to get some FIFA action to play either on the go or at home. And with that said, I'll leave it there. As usual, don't forget to like or subscribe if you enjoy the videos we produce at Digital Foundry. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.